going to be a very tight series, I think. There's no question that both these teams are far better placed than they were about 12 months ago when Australia looked down on their knees, having been beaten at home by South Africa, and England in all kinds of strife, having lost a coach and a captain at the same time. But since then, Australia have won in South Africa. Even though they've been knocked out of the 2020 early, they look really well placed now with a solid group of players who've had some success abroad in the last 6 months, so they'll be reasonably confident. England have put the Peterson-Moore stuff behind them. They've got a captain that's well respected. They've got a coach who's come into the job and done quite well at the start. They clearly have beaten the Caribbean side at the start of the summer in England, so they'll be reasonably confident. So two well-set sides, very closely matched, neither of whom are as good as I think of the teams of 2005, but I think we're going to have that kind of nip and tuck series. One game in it, I don't know, be optimistic, go with England. There are a couple of significant weaknesses. One is spin, no Shane Warne, just one ordinary orthodox spinner in Nathan Howritz, no other specialist spinner in the squad. So they'll look to make do with the likes of Katic and Clark, part-time spinners. So if it's a dry summer and the pitches turn, that's definitely to England's advantage. And then there are three key left-handers, Hussey, Hughes and Katic. Katic, who struggled here in 2005, Hughes, who's a completely unknown quantity, and Hussey, whose career graph has been on a steep downward curve. If those three struggle, then Australia could struggle for runs. You've got to look at the big name players, particularly Flintoff and Peterson, assuming they're both going to be fit, both of whom have played Ashes series before, so very experienced, and players who are so dynamic they can turn a game on its head in a session. So they're two key players for England. The other key man is Andrew Strauss. The captain, there's always a lot more pressure on him in an Ashes series. It's vital that Strauss gets his own series off to a good start, scoring runs at the top of the order. That will give him confidence and give him confidence in his decision making, which will then rub off on the rest of the team. Michael Vaughan was so important in that 2005 series that Strauss is a key man for England. Of the players I'm worried about, it's really the ones who haven't played Ashes cricket before, because you're never quite sure how they're going to react. So the likes of Bapara, a big player at number three. Number three is a crucial position. He's not played any Ashes cricket before. Graham Swan, who's likely to be the first choice pick as the spinner, and then whoever plays in that fourth seamer's role. So question marks about players that have not played Ashes cricket before. If you've got two evenly matched sides, as I believe these two are, then more often than not the best bowling side comes out on top. And even though we've said Australia have a weakness in spin, I think in the end it's going to be the pace bowling that wins or loses this series. So you're looking at a key matchup between Johnson, Siddle, Lee and Clark, and then side bottom, Flintoff, Broad, Anderson and or Onions. Whichever of those attacks stays fittest for longest and provides the most cutting edge will decide the outcome of the series. When you look at batsmen to overperform, you've really got to keep it simple and pick the great players on each team. England have got one in Kevin Peterson, even though he's relatively young in terms of age and test match experience. I think his talent is second to none. And he's the kind of player who definitely lifts his game for the biggest occasions. And then you've got Ricky Ponting on the Australian team, who has shown time and again over the last 15 years that he's one of the great players of the modern era. So Ponting and Peterson to overperform. When you're looking at underperforming, it's quite interesting because the Aussies have got question marks against a few of their players, but one I'd pick out is Michael Clark, who struggled when he came here as Hampshire's overseas player. Didn't have a particularly good 2005 Ashes series, and technically, if the ball moves around or swings, might be suspect. And for England, Alistair Cook at the top of the order. I think the Australians will target him with some technical weaknesses, looking to bowl full and off stump and get him nicking off to slip. So I'd choose Cook and Clark to underperform. Well, for England, James Anderson is absolutely at the top of his game. He's the right age now, he's fit, he's hungry, he'll stay fit throughout the series. He bowls at high pace, gets the ball swinging both ways. So if the ball does move around, he's likely to cause problems for all Australia's batsmen. So I'd definitely pick James Anderson. In terms of Australia, Mitchell Johnson is right at the top of his game. He's come of age as an international cricketer in the last 12 months. He's fast, he swings the ball, he's got tremendous heart and stamina, so he's a good pick. And I think Peter Siddle might be a surprise package because people haven't heard of him. And therefore expectations will be low, but he's an honest trier. He's somebody who's as quick at the end of the day as at the beginning, and he's likely to do well, I think, in England. In terms of underperforming, I'd pick two Australians, one a quick bowler, Brett Lee, who has question marks over his fitness, question marks over his pace, is he as quick as he was, and he's never really done that well in England and against England, so I'd pick him to underperform. And Nathan Howritz, their spinner, who's just an orthodox off spinner, and England won't lose any sleep over facing him.